Hello and welcome to an interesting video where we're going to take a close look at the new ACL injury program that was created by Latrobe University, and I'm going to be discussing some of the things we like and don't like about it and how it can be improved. So firstly, the rate of injuries in the Women's Football League over the past 2 years that it's sort of been televised and taken to a whole new level. Is, you know, the rate of injuries has been incredibly high, but this is actually nothing new for women's sport. This is, as much as the Women's Football League thinks it's a new thing, it's not. It's been like that for a long time, and there's a lot of reasons why, which we'll sort of quickly go into today. But the main thing I want to look at is this program that they created, and some of the things that they're thinking are going to prevent things are actually probably going to make it worse. And there's a lot of things that they're left out that really should be included that would make a huge difference. All right, so I'm not being overly critical entirely. I'm just sort of saying there could be things that could be done better. All right, so firstly, what's the main cause of an injury? Well, when 70% of the injuries are non-contact, so and these are, you know, non-contact things are from like cutting movements, say in soccer. So the movement in soccer is the same movement that you used in basketball, netball, football, rugby. It's not unique to women's football. It's not unique to football at all. It's just how you simply change direction to chase someone or evade someone. Landing from jumps is the other mechanism of non-contact injuries. So like I've put here, these are all things that are common to all these sports. So and now, because it's a non-contact, meaning it can be this can be prevented if there's a program in place where the person's aware of the movement and the factors that contribute to it. This includes males. All right, so the reasons that females are great at risk, and they've been found 2 to 3 times higher in sports like soccer, and even 5 to 8 times higher in sports like basketball. And the recent AFL situations consistent with these. The big question is why. Which I'll get into in a second, but I've taken a couple of newspaper articles here where, and this is the reason that some of the people in the so-called experts are saying females are bow-legged. They sure have a wider pelvis, but they're definitely not bow-legged. Bow-legged actually would prevent the problem. They're actually knock-kneed. It's the knock-knees that are the problem, not bow legs. It's a completely false statement there entirely, and it's not inevitable. These things can be reduced, but you have to have the right things about it. Second one, this has all happened in the last 2 weeks, these articles from newspapers, but ignorance to other factors, and this is where the foot plays a big role, which we'll show in a minute. And some of the researchers are sort of saying, oh, there's not a lot of stuff confirming this is the case, and you know, a lot of more research needs to be done linking footwear to injury, and there's stacks of information confirming this. So they're just probably not looking for it or wanting to do their own studies and looking in the lab. It's just there's so much information linking feet to knee problems, especially ACLs, and you'll see exactly why when I get towards the end of the video. So research, and these are just a couple of books. I could show you hundreds of books, and there's also courses and online stuff that you can look up that has already investigated this stuff that they're looking into and tried to devise programs to prevent it, just like they're looking at. And you can get a lot of great information from these things, you know, and they've got heaps of statistics and stuff as well. So these are 2 books I encourage you to get a copy of. Okay, so why are the females at risk? Well, there's a lot of reasons. The main one is the poor neuromuscular control. So it's really just how they move, poor movement patterns, just poor coordination of how they do things. Their anatomy is definitely a wider pelvis with usually an excessive anterior tilt. When I say usually, it's not always. Quad to hamstring ratio, so definitely more quads and weaker hamstrings. General joint laxity overall. General joint laxity in the knee itself. So joint laxity means just hypermobile, sort of very flexible. Poorly designed strength programs contribute to the problem. So, you know, some of the stuff they're using to prevent is actually making the situation worse and now actually giving them a chance of acquiring the injury. And ignorance to looking to the cause of the problem, especially in the cause of movement dysfunction. So sort of looking at an isolated muscle within an integrated movement is just completely crazy. So these are some of the things. We've done heaps of videos, and there's articles on this, and look in the link under this video to see more information on detail of each one of these factors. The most overwhelming problem I find with this new thing is the ignorance to movement. Just so much of this stuff is a muscle-based approach, which is trying to use a muscle-based solution for what is really a movement-based problem. Using groin exercises, I don't understand why they are even in there when these actually are contributing to ACL injuries. These are excessive groin problem, adductors, which is what they're known as, actually brings in the place of knock knees and contributes to faulty alignment. So I don't understand why that's there. Ignorance to foot mechanics, just quickly spoken about. Not really any coaching of fundamental patterns at all. So ignoring the fact of what a squat should look like, how to bend correctly, lunges, all these different things, not even in there at its fundamental, just basic stuff. They're sort of doing hard things, they haven't even coached the normal thing. And some poor coaching of the cutting mechanics, which is a real disaster. Alright, so first thing I find is, and which I'll quickly touch on, these groin things, and like strengthens groin muscle, poor groin strength associated with groin injuries. That's actually not true either. It's usually 9 times out of 10 groin problems are a problem because of the hip is not centrating the femur, which is the thigh bone, in the socket very well, and adductors are contributing to making it worse. It's actually problems with more to do with glutes and abdominal and pelvic control. The adductors are really overactive muscle, just like the hips, the muscles around their hips like TFL and ITB, etc. And these guys are the ones that contribute to the faulty alignment of the knee. So doing this exercise will actually make things worse. This actually will bring you into knock knees. I don't know why you use that. So that would give you this. This is an example of a knock knee. This is terrible foot alignment, terrible hip control. The knee is the one in the middle that's going to be exposed to the point of no return. So I don't know why you do groin exercises, and here's 2 more. So I'd get rid of both of these again. These are just, and if I had groin trouble, I definitely wouldn't be doing it. I'd be looking at ways to stabilize my hip better and learn how to control it in single leg stance, not doing these sort of things. These are just ruin movement. These actually create weaker glutes, and weak glutes are essential in providing the optimal alignment in a single leg for cutting and single leg landing. So yeah, I don't understand why they're there. The next one's side planks. I don't mind side planks to some degree, but really they don't achieve much in changing movement. Again, this is the muscle-based approach of trying to change a movement pattern with a muscle. These things here will do nothing to change these things here. If you still know how to squat poorly, which squatting is where jumping is made from, and landing from jumps in particular, if all you know is how to squat poorly, and there could be many reasons for that, poor ankle mobility, poor foot control, poor coordination in general, maybe lack of strength through glutes, it could be all of these things, you will continue to squat poorly no matter how good you get at these. And if you don't know how to cut properly, you will continue to cut properly and expose your knee to problems no matter how good you get at these. These will change nothing. Sure, they may contribute to helping you, but if I've only got a handful of exercises to give you in a program, it's not going to be one of these, because they're not going to do anything. So what I mean by motor programs, here's a cutting example. So within the software program of the brain to run this movement, there's so many muscles on the job. I don't know why, and they all got to work at the right time. So they all switch on and off at exactly the right moment to create the perfect alignments. This is a perfect alignment on a cutting move, which is like a change direction, which is exactly where we'd see a lot of the ACLs torn. And all of these joints and muscles are on the go, all in the split second, all in the right timing to create the perfect alignment. The only way to change this is within the pattern itself. I can use various drills that might help and assist the pattern, but to change the pattern I have to do it within the pattern. So I have to use a simple way of doing it, then strengthening it, and then making it move quickly, and then exposing it to reactivity. But I have to do it within the pattern. I can't change it any other way. So this is an example of like cogs on a wheel. So here's an example of Nordic curls, which is another one of the exercises, and AFL loves Nordic curls. Sure, they're a great eccentric strength building thing for the hamstrings, but removing them from how they're actually used in the movement means they may actually try to spin their cog quicker than they're meant to. They especially hamstrings, they become a bit of a hypertonic muscle. For me to improve strength in one, I need to improve the strength in all, and I need to improve their timing. The timing is everything. Timing is more important too than the strength, because if it was truly only about strength, why do we still see NFL linebackers and running backs who could squat 300 kilos below their ACL? It's not only its strength is only one part of it, but it won't save you if your timing and your movement is wrong. So this is where people really got to understand movement is more important too. All right, so single leg squat is a great way to include strengthening, and the pistol squats I don't like. If you can do it like this girl with good alignment, that's fine, but most people can't. But this exercise is awesome because it requires the perfect timing, the motor control, high level of foot stability, a high level of coordination, high level of glute strength. It's the foundation movement from going simple to harder for cutting movements, landing from jumps. It mimics the positioning where the injury mechanism is likely to occur. So I will use everything in a program to change this, knowing that this is the injury mechanism. All right, so an example here of the kinetic chain at work. So if his foot over pronates, his knee's going to internally rotate because it shifts inward, and the pelvis is probably, if the pelvis rotates forward, so I could create it from the other end. The pelvis could rotate forward too much, and that's where the adductors and the hip flexors are doing that. And you see why adductors are not a good thing, because the glutes are the one that give me the outward rotate part for the knee to keep me the knee aligned better. So any one of these things from here or here will expose this one to problems, and that's exactly what we see, and that's where the ACL is ripped apart when it's moving inwards. We've got to try and keep it in its alignment, perfect alignment, and this drill is perfect for it. You can see all the different factors that contributed to doing that correctly. So I mentioned before key movement patterns. Well, there's really 7 of them, and they all should be done standing. Even the pushing and pulling, they really need to be done in standing actions. Cable exercises are the best for that, where you're learning to create stability and optimal positioning of the pelvis, rib cage, foot, everything that you would need to allow you to be stable enough to move. These things all should be a part of a program, and are definitely sort of moving more into split stance and lunges and single leg things, more so than parallel stuff. The parallel stuff sets the scene for the jumping and the bending, but then you would try to move it to single leg. But I can't move to single leg if I don't have the 2 leg first, and this is a big part of the program. They don't really have any of these in there, so they're just sort of skipping cutting corners, and it's always a danger when you do that. So poor squat form, if you don't know how to actually get good mobility through the ankles and drive good quad strength here, this is poor technique on a squat here. This shows you where the knees should be driving over the toes and you're keeping parallel through the spine, and the shins here should be parallel to each other. And this is what we call the moment arm. So this is where there's an even distribution of strength between glutes and hamstrings and quads, perfect range of motion through the ankle and the moment arm sort of coming right through the axis here, and there's an even distribution, so I don't ruin my back either, because that's what will happen on that other squat. This one exposes the back to trouble, and it doesn't give the quads any strengthening, which is actually known as a quad strengthening exercise. So the things you thought were going to help you are actually going to ruin you. Again, look in the link below, in the description below. There's links to read more about specific in a lot more detail about this. All right, but just understand that that's a perfect squat there, where these should be parallel to each other. When they're not like that, you know that person's not going to jump well either. Okay, so these drills are okay. I don't sort of mind them too much. Probably prefer to remove the ball and have the person focus on quality landings. If I wanted to add reactivity, I would prefer people either pushing or using bands to create a loss of positioning, and that's where contact that you can't see from behind you, which is a bigger thing than catching the ball. I find that is a better way to encourage the reflex reactivity that they're looking for in this drill. This one, however, is a terrible instruction. This here, the plant foot is good. The trunk upright that's the worst thing you can ever do. That's exactly where the femur is going to fly right over the tibia there. Alright, so because he's too upright, no hip control. You don't want to be too upright, you need to actually stay a bit lower, have the hips driving behind you. You can sort of see here where his pelvis is coming into a posterior tilt. That's terrible hip control. You cannot, you won't be very fast either, but you can't explode out of that. That's where you can't load up. The glutes are so important for the power acceleration, and this is a terrible instruction. This will actually set you up for injury. So I don't understand why they do that when there's so much information about not doing it that way. So anyway, so athletic low stance is where the proper loading you need. Example here is say Steph Curry in the NBA. Look at this is a cutting move. Look how low he is on this. Imagine if he tried to sit upright, you can just see the damage going into his knee, because it's going to turn it all quad, no posterior to absorb the impact and explode to go. So he's going to be slow for a start and horrible position for the knee. So you completely ignore that. Again, terrible instruction to stay upright again. So it's again, like I don't mind the foot plant's good. The shoulder sway instruction's good. Shoulder sway is another terrible thing that we see creating problems. That's where their side plank theory comes into it. But if you don't change the pattern, it doesn't matter how strong your abs are, because they're not going to save you because their timing's wrong. But this trunk upright thing is terrible, so you don't want to be like that at all. Foot stability, as I mentioned before, critical, and this is where there's nothing about that in this program at all. Foot plant angle is massive. The foot plant angle, and we see a lot of trouble with ACLs where there's huge issues with big toe dysfunction, where the person can't even lift their big toe when I ask them to lift it, can't spread they're in a toe gripping position, they can't actually, they've got no use of the intrinsic muscles of their foot. I see that all the time. It doesn't necessarily mean they're a flat foot, they could be the high arch. They're definitely not this normal person, normal sort of foot arch, and there's no space between these toes. They're sort of moving more into bunion sort of thing. I see that so often. I haven't actually recorded this, but I would say I would have a fairly good assumption that it would be about 80% of the people that I've seen over the last 10 years that have problems with the feet. Alright, so huge issues, and if they've had history of ankle things, again I'm going to suspect probably there's issues with the foot, and there must be something in that, because the foot angle, the foot plant angle is where everything's loaded from. If that sort of turns out, the knee is going to be torqued and twisted. Okay, so what things did I like? Well, I didn't mind this one. This is a good drill. I didn't mind the jumping forward. Probably I don't know about how many jumps. I'd probably prefer less. More sets of less reps to guarantee quality instead of fatigue. It's not about strengthening, it's about timing. If the timing's out because of fatigue, then you're learning how to do it wrong. So I love the drill, just probably not the amount of reps. This one I didn't mind as well. I don't know why it says strengthen groin muscles. It really is not a groin exercise, but anyway. But I don't mind this. Again, maybe the reps, shorten the reps off a bit, make more sets and aim for higher quality. But I didn't mind this as a drill. It's not bad. So anyway, for more details on how we would structure this, I created a book over a year ago that went through everything step by step, and you can get this from our website, and this will take you through everything from basic mobility work to basic stability work to basic strength work to integrated strength work to integrated movement to integrated power and speed. Even running technique we look at. So all of the factors that are how to assess everything as well, so you can work out exactly what's the right program for you, because that's another big thing with issue with this program, is everyone's doing the same thing, and that may be good for some people, but it may be worse for others because we're not all the same. So if you want a copy of this, go to our website in the link below. I guarantee you'll find a stack of information that is not included in the Latrobe program, and you will see exactly the reasons why, and it's all mapped out for you how to do it. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that video, and we'll see you on our next one.